New surveillance video released in the Tristan Bailey murder investigation.
For decades, criminals have always intrigued society, and there's something about a drug kingpin falling to his death that just fascinates society. From the Trinidad gangs of Trinidad and Roberto to MS-13 of East Los Angeles. But what is their reactions when you go from being the tough guy to being sentenced behind bars for life? In this video, we will go over some of the most feared gang members and their reaction when they are told they will never see civilization again, receiving a life sentence. At number 1, Aiden Fuji. This teenager, at just 14 years of age, was guilty of committing a crime so disturbing that it will forever be remembered all throughout Florida. On May 9, 2021, he murdered his classmate, 13-year-old Tristan Bailey, a beloved cheerleader, and dumped her body in the woods somewhere in St. Johns County. And the community was forever disturbed, thinking why in the world would such a young boy do such things? But just like any other troubled teen, reports slowly started to come in that he had experienced much violence in his youth and was mentally ill. And to make matters worse, he was constantly abusing alcohol and other substances, getting him suspended multiple times from school. Unfortunately, his parents were not able to get him the counseling or programs required to set him on the right path. And in June 2021, he officially attended his court trial, with the judge having no remorse trying him as an adult. With an ample amount of evidence showing the DNA at the murder scene matched his, the judge with zero remorse sentenced him to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Unfortunately, he showed zero to no emotion when being sentenced, but many people in the jury said that when he was being taken away, he looked destroyed. Number 2. George Jewel Thomas, a South African kingpin, was sentenced to 7 life terms on June 3, 2015. He was born in Cape Town, South Africa, in the ghetto parts of the neighborhood, and was quickly attracted to the drug and violence life of that era. Soon, he made his way into the famous 28's gang. Not only was George smart, but he was feared, using physical force to get his way and rise up the gang pyramid. And soon, he became known all over the country for his hits on other gang members and the high amounts of drugs he was moving along the country. And in 2006, the authorities just had enough of him. He was charged with the assassination of 7 people, including a 6-month-old baby boy. In court, the judge gave in a life sentence as the government wanted to make an example out of him, that anyone part of the gang life will pay the consequences. But it didn't faze him at all. Throughout the trial, he still smiled and laughed in a psychotic manner, showing that he cared very little about the harm that he had left on society. Number 3. Abel Calicos. He was sentenced to not only life in prison, but 163 years for killing Isabella Duran. But his crimes will just give you the goosebumps on November 5th, 2018. He lured Duran on a social media app, then kidnapped her and beat her about 10 times. And worse than anything else, at the end, he set her on fire. Even the judge, Philip McNally, after hearing the full details, said that he was disgusted by their evil actions, as they were simply horrific. He even said that his actions were heinous and unforgivable. Fortunately, Abel got his punishment, but just like any other murderer, he showed zero emotion and just reacted with a blank face. Number 4. The Gangster Disciples Street Gang, Atlanta, Georgia. These gang members brutally murdered Christopher Dean and were sentenced to life in prison. They strategically planned to attack Christopher with baseball bats and beat him to death in front of a MARTA station in November of 2016. And 2 years later, the jury convicted all of them guilty. And just like all the previous murderers just mentioned, each of them showed no emotion at all. The only thing the judge, Gail S. Tuzin, said was that this incident makes it difficult for parents to see their children leave the world before them. Number 5. The Trinitarios. On June 20th, 2018, Lisandro Guzman Feliz just shocked the state of New York as he was killed by the Trinitarios in the Bronx. The gang members mistakenly took him for another gang member and within minutes attacked him with machetes outside a liquor store. Just imagine you being attacked and the whole time you don't even know why. Lisandro tried to escape, but there were just too many gang members for him to get away. When the surveillance video was released, 8 members of the gang were charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to life behind bars. And although the family members felt as if justice was served that day, the 8 members of the Trinitarios just laughed and grinned, showing no sympathy or regret for their crimes. At number 6, Montana Baronet. He was a member of the Montana gang, trained to go. He murdered 6 people and was sentenced by the judge to 2 life sentences behind bars. He even once stated online, "A few haters, I will take all of your lives if I could." And he was given nicknames by the Baltimore Police Department as the city's #1 trigger puller. His defense lawyer tried to convince the judge that all of his actions were a result of having a rough and difficult childhood, but the judge didn't buy it, stating the Montana was rather a danger to society and being locked up was in society's best interest. But unfortunately, Montana just showed a straight and intimidating face. At number 7, Victor Rodos, a lifelong member of the vicious MS-13 gang. He murdered a 17-year-old Raymond Wood and was sentenced to 55 years behind bars. They took Raymond and kidnapped him in a car in Richmond, Virginia, and slowly strangling him to death. The jury was disgusted by his behavior, and at the end, the judge didn't give him a life sentence, but 55 years is close enough. However, when the sentencing was finalized, Victor just looked down at the ground with no compassion or regret for his killing. At number 8, Lee Reyes, a 25-year-old, was given a life sentence with no chance of parole for first-degree murder. He had assassinated Kenneth Lopez, a lifelong member of the Latin Kings gang. When the trial started, Max Bennett, the district assistant attorney, said that Lee strategically created an evil and horrific plan to meet with Kenneth. And after many long hours and day of trial, the jury stated that Reyes was guilty of first-degree murder, as his crimes were not only deliberate but showed substantial amounts of atrocity and cruelty. And to make matters worse, the district attorney stated that he was unlawfully storing firearms, charging him again with an additional 8 gun charges. At the trial, Lopez's family members were given the opportunity to make a statement, and they said that the death of their loved one came at a shock and really hit them with pain. Some even said they couldn't believe that he is gone now, but Lee just stood still, showing no remorse or regret for his actions. All he did was look down as if he was frozen. Please comment below on how you would act if a judge all of a sudden gave you a life sentence and you knew you would never see the light of day again. And if you liked this video and want to see more videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel. And remember, Always stay enlightened.